Hey everybody, welcome to J Stern Designs. I'm making this project because one of my friends asked me if I could make one for him because his wife is having a baby. And I decided it'd be a fun little project that I could do in my new studio that I've been working on. If you've been following me on Facebook, maybe you noticed that, I went to the IKEA and I got the shelving you can see behind me. And I have a new cutting surface, and all of my major design mess is downstairs in my sewing studio. And this is going to be where I'm going to shoot video. So I wanted to just do a quick project and test out my new digs. So that's what we're going to do today. I came up with my own design, and as you can see, I'm wearing this very attractive piece of fabric, and basically what it is it's a piece of knit, and we're going to sew the actual cover to it. And then you can tuck one arm under, so you can see that, oops, this arm, it goes under the arm, and then, when you're nursing your baby, you can have, plenty of modesty, and plus it's nice and comfortable because your arms are free and there's nothing tied around your neck. So this is what we're going to be making. I'm just going to stand up and show you. So it's sort of at an angle. See, it's sort of like a kitty corner kind of a thing. So this is what we're going to be making, but we're going to make it out of more fun fabric. This is just something I grabbed quick to make a little prototype so I could figure out how to do it. So let me go over what you're going to need to make this nursing cover. You're going to need a 1/4 yard of knit. Now, the 1/4 yard is, the width of it's 9 inches, and you want to make sure that it's going from end to end the stretch way. Okay, so some knits are two-way stretch and they only stretch in one direction. So when you cut out your strip of fabric, make sure that the stretch is going with the lengthwise direction. The next thing you're going to need is 3 1/2 yard pieces of fabric. So these are across the width of the fabric, and they're 18 inches long, or wide in this case, and they're the width of the fabric. And you need one for the main part of the front, and then you need a second one for the back, which it'll be reversible. So I'm going to use this one as one side of my nursing cover, and then I'm going to use this blue ivy as my second. And then you're going to need a coordinating print. Because my two main fabrics are so busy, I'm going to go with this sort of subdued lighter blue. And what we're going to do with this 3rd 1/2 yard piece of fabric is we're going to cut it in half, and we're going to make a border at the bottom edge of both sides of our cover. All right. I'm going to use a rotary cutter and a ruler because I have my mat in order to cut my coordinating fabric in half. You can use a pair of scissors or the rotary cutter, whatever you're comfortable doing. So let's get started. All right, you can see that I've laid my 1/2 yard piece of contrasting fabric on my cutting table, and I'm going to do it sideways from what I would normally do, just so it's easy for you to see how I'm cutting. I'm using the grid on my cutting mat to make sure that my fabric is lined up and square, so when I go to cut it, I'll be cutting straight across. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut 2 9-inch strips by cutting this one 18-inch piece in half. So I'm going to just count over because I don't have my numbers available to me right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is right here. And I'm going to line my ruler up, and I'm going to cut across. Now notice this is one of my shorter rulers, and it's not making it all the way to the other side of the fabric. So what I'm going to do to make sure I'm square is I'm just going to fold this down evenly to make it a little shorter. I'm just going to measure to make sure I'm folding it down equally. And I've got 4 1/4 there, and I've got 4 1/4 there. So now I know that I folded the end over equally. I can see both sides of my ruler on the mat, and that way I'm sure I'm cutting all the way across evenly. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And see, I'm lining up the ruler here and I'm lining it up here. And now I'm just going to cut across. Okay. So now I've got my 2 9-inch pieces of contrasting fabric. The next step is we're going to put the contrasting fabric right sides together with the main fabric for our nursing cover. And notice this fabric is a directional fabric, meaning there's an up and down. So if I hold it this way, the top is on the top and the bottom is on the bottom. So just take a minute and look at your fabric and make sure that you're putting the direction going in the right direction if you have a directional print. So I'm going to take my contrasting fabric and I'm going to line up the raw edges with each other like this so that they're even, and I'm going to put a few pins in to hold it. So I'm just pinning, and I pin about every, 5 or 8 inches. I'm not crazy with the pins, but a few pins will help make sure the fabric doesn't shift while you're sewing. So I'm just gonna put in some pins like this. Okay, now you can see with this fabric, my contrasting fabric is slightly, doesn't quite make it all the way till the end. The main fabric's slightly wider. That's okay, we'll trim it to be even before we put it together. So I'm gonna just pin these together and I'm gonna sew them using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this one aside and I'm just gonna pin the second one too, and then we'll go to the sewing machine. So I've got my second fabric right here. This one's not a directional print, so I don't really have to worry which end I put the contrasting fabric. All right, let's go. Okay, so I'm just gonna put these right sides together, and again, I'm just gonna put in a few pins. All right, now these are pinned together. Let's go to the sewing machine. Okay, you can see I'm using a gray thread. Gray is the perfect color to use if you've got a multicolor project because it blends in with a lot of different colors. So instead of trying to match a blue, I'm just going to use gray. All right, so here I am. I've got a shape and press board that I'm going to use for this class just because it's easier than running to my iron across the room. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my fabric down with the wrong side face up, and I'm just going to press my seam allowances down towards the contrasting fabric like this, and I'm going to go all the way across. Just work a little at a time. You're hearing real iron sounds. When I was doing my very first class, I was pressing a t-shirt, but my iron wasn't plugged in, so I was making little pss, 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 pss noises, like I was really steaming. My husband thought that was kind of funny because he was helping me. But we're using real steam, real sound effects in this class. All right, so you can see when I turn it around, it looks pretty nice. I'm gonna just give it a press from the right side. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press my second side. So I'm going to put this one aside, and let's press this one. Okay, so again, I'm going to put my fabric on the ironing board, wrong side face up, And I'm just going to press my seam allowance down. All right. See how this looks from the side? How lovely. I'm going to just give it a good iron. All right. All right, so now we've got our two panels for our nursing cover stitched, and you can see I've got this design, and I've also got the blue vine style print fabric. Now that I have them sewn together, I'm gonna make sure that they're exactly the same size, so when I go to sew them together, I won't have to worry about matching anything up. Okay. All right, so now what I'm gonna do, now that I have them right sides together, I'm gonna lay them on my cutting mat and I'm gonna fold it in half, and then I'm going to trim it around the edge if there's anything uneven. That way I'll be sure that both sides of my fabric are exactly the right size. So when I go to sew it together later and put it together with my knit band, I won't have to worry about that. All right, so I'm going to fold my fabric in half. And when I do that, I just want to make sure that I'm lining up the seams so everything's matching up. And you can see around my edges that it's not exactly square. So if I fold this in half, some of the layers are sticking out farther than some of the other layers. So we're going to true this up so that all the pieces are exactly the same size. So I'm going to start by lining up the folded edge with one of the lines on the grid of my cutting table. That way I know that when I trim, I can use the lines around the sides to get an accurate squared edge. Okay, so basically I'm lining up my fold there, and then I'm going to take my ruler and my rotary cutter, and I'll start on this outer edge over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look and see what the fabric is doing underneath. And I can tell that if I trim along this line right here all the way across, then I'll be trimming it all even on this outside edge. So, okay, I'm going to line my ruler up with the lines on the cutting table, and then I'm just going to cut. All right. All right, 'cause now you can see that this edge is pretty square. All these edges are in agreement. Let me zoom in so you can see that. You can see that this edge is nice and square. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm just going to trim these uneven edges and the ones along the contrasting edge. So I will have a set of perfectly sized rectangles. Okay, I'm just going to trim off a little bit, just enough to make it even. See how that's nice and even? And I think what I'm going to do is just turn this around one direction so I can get to this other side. And I'm just going to line up all the other edges with lines on the board so I know everything is still square. Okay, so now I'm going to tackle this last edge right here, and I'm just going to even that up. Okay. Okay. All right, so now you can see that I have my two perfect rectangles